Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chris Simpson, Programs Lead at Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center. We are so glad you are all here for another installment of Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center's Book Talk. This virtual series focuses on recently published books related to our work on Holocaust education, defending human rights, and combating anti-Semitism, racism, and other forms of hate. We are excited to have Todd Diamond on this evening's program, who will speak about his book, Pass the Trauma, Please. A special thank you to the Jewish Book Council. Both Todd and Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center are members of the organization. For this session, please feel free to keep your videos on with your mics muted so we do not have any accidental disruptions. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so folks who are unable to attend today can watch at a later date. You're welcome to submit your questions using the chat function throughout the program, and we will do our best to get to them during the Q&A. I'm proud to be joined by my colleague, Robert Sarner, Senior Editor and Writer at Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center and host of Book Talk. On that note, I will hand it over to you, Robert.
Thank you so much, Chris, and welcome everyone to this latest edition of FSWC's Book Talk series. And I should mention it's actually the first installment in our fall season. I'm excited to have with us, as Chris mentioned, our featured author tonight, Todd Diamond, who's joining us from his home just outside Washington, D.C. in Fairfax, Virginia. We'll be discussing his new book, as mentioned, Pass the Trauma, Please. It's being released actually in days, officially next week, by Fig Tree Books, the publisher of the book. I'm honored that the main subject of the book, namely Todd's incredible 94-year-old Holocaust surviving father, David, is also with us this evening. He'll be speaking to us from his home on the West Coast in California, in San Mateo, which is near San Francisco. It actually means a lot to us to have David with us, because those of you who are familiar with FSWC know the special place that we reserve for Holocaust survivors who have always been so central to our organization. They're both a form of tremendous inspiration for us, and they command great respect from the staff at FSWC and all those who are exposed to the lessons that we teach using Holocaust survivors as an important thing. David's life, especially during and after the Holocaust, like with other survivors, is a source of great inspiration for many people. David was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1930. 9 years later, just after World War II erupted, he and his family were forced to move into the Warsaw Ghetto. Sadly, his parents were murdered by the Nazis during the war. David later left for Israel just shortly after World War II ended, and he fought in Israel's War of Independence. In 1950, he moved to the U.S., starting a new life, owning a pharmacy and raising a family. This evening, later in the program, as Chris mentioned, we will be taking questions from you, our audience, for both David and Todd. So do please use the chat box in the corner of your screen. Before beginning the Q&A, I do want to first read out a brief bio for Todd, for whom this book is really close to home, literally and figuratively. Born in Queens, New York in 1960, Todd is a successful advertising executive. He's a partner and creative director of an ad agency called The Unbound. Todd studied at Syracuse University, where he graduated from the Newhouse School of Public Communications before beginning his career as a copywriter in Providence and then Boston. He later moved to California, where he started the DMNA agency, which would become one of the largest advertising firms in Silicon Valley. Todd would eventually return to the East Coast, where he now lives with his family. It's now my pleasure to welcome Todd to this evening's edition of Book Talk. Thank you, Todd, for being with us here, and mazel tov on the publication of your new book.
Thank you, Robert. It's really nice to be a part of this series.
At the same time, I want to welcome Todd's father, David, from the other coast, the West Coast, who's here to keep his son honest. Thank you, David, for joining us now, where on your side of things, it's still the afternoon. And mazel tov to you, too.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much.
You really, I'm sure it's a great pleasure for you to see your amazing life being honored in Todd's book. Before discussing the book, I just want to mention that I myself finished reading it this past weekend and confirmed citing. So you see, here it is. I quite appreciated it. To be clear, it's anything but your conventional memoir of a Holocaust survivor. As indicated in the book's subtitle, which the print is probably too small for you perhaps to read it, but it says under the title, "Pass the Trauma, Please," my father's not-so-depressing Holocaust memoir about love, loss, laughter, and legacy. But reader alert, the book also includes coarse language, candid sexual content, rapid-fire verbal jabs, and off-color humor, which some people may not find to their sensibility. It didn't disturb me, but I could see that perhaps some people may not be their style. But at the core of this book is David's compelling story of what he lived through during and after the Holocaust and its lasting impact on him, his wife, and their two sons, Todd and Steve. So let's begin the Q&A with you, Todd, and in your own words, why don't you share with the audience, because I've had the pleasure of reading the book, but I'd like to hear in your own words a brief description of what it is to help our audience understand.
Sure. Oh, well, it's my dad's Holocaust survivor story, but it's told in a way that doesn't quite feel like other Holocaust books. As you were mentioning, it's a bit offbeat, irreverent, and certainly breaks a few norms of the Holocaust genre. But fear not, it's got a hefty dose of horror and heartbreak. There's ghettos and death camps and all the genocide that you would expect in a Holocaust story. But there's also brothels and prostitutes and decadent nights at Studio 54. There's tales of losing your virginity and my father revealing some pretty scandalous secrets in a Chinese restaurant. And the book isn't just about him. It's also about what happens when trauma migrates from a survivor to the next generation, and how it manifests in dysfunctional relationships, substance abuse, and self-sabotage. It's pretty dark stuff at times, but lightened with humor in places where you'd least expect, and just when it's needed most.
Perhaps an obvious question, but what prompted you to write the book, which, if I understood correctly, took several years to reach fruition? And I also want to ask, was there any element of this, perhaps a sense of duty in writing the book?
Yeah. There's only so many times you can hear your Holocaust father say, "Hey, Putz, when are you going to write my story? I'm not getting any younger over here." Before you give in and you start filling up your notes app and some Moleskine journals with notes and background and some research. So he is one of the last survivors, 94 going on 95. So there was this urgency to get his story out there while he's still alive and still able to answer some tough questions. And ideally, he would reveal things that he never shared before. Uh, the first draft was shaping up okay. It was a somber and historical account, quite reverent. But a couple of friends who I think are on this call, they read an early draft and they were like, you know what? It doesn't sound like you. It doesn't sound like your father. Like, where are the F-bombs? Uh, where's the sex and the drugs and the rock and roll and the unfortunate disco? Uh, so got back to work, worked on another draft. Uh, and I think the book finally found its true blue voice.
In addition to the elements that you just cited that are in the book, to great effect, of course, your dad's childhood in Poland before and then into the war. Perhaps you could share with our audience maybe some high level uh, moments of your dad's childhood into the war. And I know we have some photographs that survived actually from that period, and we'll show some of those photos while you're speaking.
Okay. Well, as you had mentioned earlier, his family was shoved into the Warsaw Ghetto uh, shortly after the start of the war. Um, his parents were murdered by the Nazis. Um, his father was sent to Treblinka, and his mother was murdered in a hospital. He was 12 years old when he was arrested by the Gestapo for smuggling. His father was a physician, so he was smuggling drugs in and out of the ghetto so that his father could continue treating patients. And he did that until the day he died. After he was arrested by the Gestapo, my father was sent to Germany as a slave laborer, where he was viciously abused. And then eventually he was liberated by a Russian soldier who put him on top of a train. So think Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible. And then he makes his way back to Warsaw, only to discover that his family is wiped out. A bit later, he gets recruited by the Zionists, and he nearly dies fighting for Israeli independence. Uh, and so much more that you could fill a book.
Well, that gives a good sense, and I can testify that you're quite evocative in the book with it. Uh, you say early in the book that one of your great concerns was whether you would finish the book in time while your father was still alive. You had a great sense of this. The clock of mortality was ticking, and given your dad's age, you expressed this in the book. So I'm curious to ask you, well, thankfully, your dad is very much alive and well. And what does it mean to you that he is alive for him to see the book published, to have his story shared far and wide thanks to your book?
Um, I think one of the most emotional moments of my life was when I physically handed the book from my hands to my father's hands, uh, that he was able to receive it. And better yet, he read it. Dad, I think he read it 3 times. and he's read the multiple versions of it, but the passing from hand to hand, I have this visual in my mind that I've never been able to shake. That presentation of the book from one generation to the next.
Beautifully said. David, I'd like to turn to you now, and without any pretense of objectivity on your end, what was it like for you to read the book? And well, Todd just mentioned you've read it 3 times at least. but what were your thoughts, and what do you think about this book?
Well, to me, it was rather a very powerful book because it reminded myself I'm reliving the whole thing over again. When I read this book a couple of times, by the way, and each time when I was reading that book, I became very emotional, very how should I say? I said to myself, how can you? I mean, the book is a great book. I mean, so the future generation should be able to read it and see what happened to the Jewish people. But as far as reading that book, it made me feel finally it came like a closure, more or less. And then it made me feel good that my son actually wrote a story about me, what happened, and all that.
Todd writes in the book, in the introduction, that when he told you he was embarking on this project, you had, you had one main piece of advice or one real request, and that was for Todd to make sure that it be a different kind of memoir. I believe you said, "Don't drown the reader in darkness," if I recall the phrase. That
Exactly right.
And well, I can guarantee you, Todd did not drown the reader in dark. I mean, there's enough darkness in the book, no question, but far from being only darkness. And well, I want to ask you, why was this so important to you that it be very different from other Holocaust memoirs of other Holocaust survivors?
Well, I didn't want Todd to put the dark side of it. I want to put a little humor in there again. Everybody, people, writers were writing about the Holocaust and this dead destruction. I said to Todd, write something a little bit, put a little humor in there. So I guess there's a little humor in this book too. There,
I
oh,
if I could just jump onto that, I think humor, especially in this context, was essential for a few reasons. Despite the horrors that my father experienced, he has this ability to find the humor and the light and to not fall into despair. It seems to be the survival mechanism for him. And as my father and I discussed, in no way does a few laughs diminish the weight of the Holocaust. It's more about making history bearable enough to people so that they will keep listening, they will keep reading. And I think humor is a Trojan horse in a way. It's a delivery mechanism that can carry in the misery and the trauma and the hard truths that people don't really want to engage with. And it's not disrespect. In fact, irony and comedy have always been ways that Jewish authors and Jewish creators help to defang the stereotypes about us. It's how we humanize ourselves against this constant attempt to dehumanize us. So, I mean, if humor can get a few more people to grapple with genocide, then I think the book's done its job. And I'm pretty sure I have a few advertising colleagues on this call, and I think they'd agree with me that if you can make people laugh, you'll get them to pay attention. And just one more thing about humor, I also had some good role models. There's Mel Brooks, and he brought the ha-ha to the Holocaust. Woody Allen and Philip Roth, they really understand how to mine Jewish anxiety and generational trauma in some incredibly entertaining ways.
David, is the book what you were expecting?
yes. It's just what it's not that deep. How should I say? Yeah. This is not the regular survival book, that so many writers wrote. is a little, has everything, a little bit of little humor, a little sadness, little this, a little that. But I want to mention one thing there. When I was working for this German, the farmer there, now they didn't know that I was Jewish. And if they would find out that I was Jewish, of course, they would shoot me, bury me, then take me out from the grave and hang me again because I fooled them.
So yeah, one of the images that you pulled up, Robert, was my father's false identity papers.
Yeah, there's the papers that you saw before, right? With the German swastika and all that.
Yeah.
That's what saved me because, well, this I was lucky. My father's friend, who was in the police department that time in Warsaw, maybe these false papers. Oh, here they are.
Yeah.
That's me.
And
So,
that got him out of that got him out of being sent to a death camp while he was in Warsaw, and enabled him to, disguise himself and as a Christian boy, and survive. I don't know if you can see this, but
Hmm.
his
yeah,
last
what
his
it was,
false identity, Lipsky.
right. Okay.
Uh, I marked myself with it.
Well, so, as part of the unconventional side to the book, this is a question more for David, but there are many personal, very private aspects and details of your life that are included in the book, and aspects that perhaps you and your family, I imagine, approve, but um, you think that people will be surprised that you did consent for these things to be in the book, David. Like some very personal and, as I said, private details about your life.
Yeah,
And you were clearly comfortable with that.
very comfortable with that. Yes, because I want to see that the future generations be able to read it. This is my true story. This is nothing. It's all true.
And there's
I
no.
was, yeah,
Go ahead, Todd, please.
yeah. I mean, I was, a little concerned that about writing something that exposed our family so much. But I think I was more concerned about writing something that felt sanitized, too sanitized, um, or inauthentic. The guy did not live a PG-13 life. Uh, and I left out a lot of stuff because I didn't, want the book to be pushed off into the erotica section of Barnes and Nobles. Um, but yeah, there's rough language and some raw moments, but that's part of his truth and part of our family's truth. So if certain readers are offended, that's not great, and I'm not thrilled about that. But I would rather offend with a brutal honesty than comfort readers with conventional storytelling and cliche.
Just a reminder to everyone in the audience that a bit later in the program, we'll be taking questions from the audience for Todd and David. So please, we do encourage you to post your questions in the chat box. Todd, just following up on what you just said about some of that content, did you feel almost a conscious desire to push the boundaries? And you say you weren't really concerned that it may even alienate some readers.
Right. Let's see. I guess that'll take me to structure. I'm an advertising creative director. So pushing boundaries and overcoming people's resistance is my job. Engaging a wider audience is critical. So I kind of treated the book like a branding problem on some level, to get people to stop, to listen, to connect, and most importantly, to share my father's story. And not just, our generation, but also younger generations, connect with them on their level. Um, they, regarding the structure of the book, one of my father's, shocking, a lot of my father's shocking confessions came out at a Chinese restaurant, uh, with biting humor, of course. So I made a decision to capture these rapid fire jabs and revelations as a stage play running throughout the book, uh, alongside traditional narrative and reportage, and that extends throughout the course of the meal. Um, Also trying to keep it unique and fresh. I break the fourth wall quite a bit to connect the past to the present, to let readers see my anxieties up close. And I've also included some doctor's notes from Mount Sinai's, let me get this right, Inherited Trauma Research Team. And I use them as permission slips for my questionable life choices. The point is, when I started and hopefully carried through, was to keep the book fresh, engaging, um, relatable, unignorable, and accessible. Um, because I feel like people already have a sense that they know this story so well, they know about the Holocaust, or they're ignoring it, and I want to draw them in. And I, I think the attempt was validated not too long ago by Jay Rosenblatt. He's an Academy Award nominated director who read the book, and he said, I'm going to try to remember it. This is not your typical Holocaust story in any way, shape, or form, and therein lies its strength.
What was the hardest part for you in writing the book?
Hmm. Um, Probably trying to balance the reverence with the irreverence. Like, how do you tell the grimmest story in history without smothering the humor that my father was demanding to be in the book? And the other hardest part was the research, uh, especially the stuff about Treblinka, which is where my grandfather was murdered. That research broke me. It made me sick physically and spiritually. Uh, but somehow I was able to channel that anger and that revulsion into what I feel, and as we discussed, is one of the more powerful parts of the book. When I take my father to Treblinka, the site of his father's murder, and it's emotionally charged for sure, but it's also a defiant narrative moment because I get to shine a light on the Treblinka uprising, which is one of the most profound examples of that Jewish warrior spirit of survival. And just thinking about that experience at Treblinka gets me kind of emotional. So if anybody has a good joke right about now, uh, hey, Charlie North End, if you're listening, Uh, time to crack a joke. That's my business partner. Very funny guy.
Well, on
Or
a
dad,
okay,
chime in.
if you're looking for a slightly lighter note now, my next question actually pertains to the way you quote your father referring to you in many places, that he refers to you as, in multiple occasions throughout the book, as Putz, as Putz face, and other less endearing terms. And first of all, how do you feel when your father refers to you that in such ways?
Um, well, it's kind of a love language in my family. Putz, Schmendrick, I don't know if you mentioned that.
Right.
Uh, Putz face are just kind of endearing terms for my son. Uh, and it's typically accompanied by a, palm to the forehead. He's got a very nice forehead. Uh, and he applies those terms mostly in the context of when we're having differing opinions. He has very strong opinions, heated debates, or a perceived naivete from me. And you are guaranteed to be called one of those names if you dare attempt to get any information about his time in Israel. And now that I'm thinking about it, I should probably consider making it part of my pronouns. He, him, his, and putz. I'll add that onto it.
David, I'd like to turn to you with the next question. It's in reference to a chapter that Todd just mentioned, which actually I felt was one of the strongest parts of the book, and it's the visit to Treblinka in 2004, that you make this pilgrimage, David, with your sons. I first want to ask you, did you have any hesitation in going back to Poland, going to Treblinka, the place where your father was murdered? What did it mean for you to be there? And did you hesitate in going?
Sorry, Robert. It looks like David is not on the call, and is having trouble to rejoin.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Um, all right. Well, until we hope to get David back on the call, but in the interim, Todd. So I'll actually maybe turn that question to you. I know you referred to the Treblinka chapter already, but from your perspective, what was it like for your father to go to Treblinka? Did he have any trepidation, any hesitation in going? Uh, how did you perceive it?
Yeah, he was wary of going, but I think he felt it was uh, time to face the demon, time to get some closure. And what I wanted more than anything on that trip was to deliver my father to his father, because they never had the opportunity to say farewell. My father was arrested by the Gestapo, ripped out of his family's life, and never had that chance to say goodbye. So in a way, it was delivering him to his father so that he could have his opportunity to do that. One thing my brother and I did do before Treblinka, we took him to Auschwitz because we thought that would be a warm up.
Was this the first time your father was back in Poland since the war?
Yes.
So about 60 years later.
Yes. And we went to, we saw, we called it Death Tour '04. And we took him to Warsaw, to Krakow. And then after Poland, essentially, we just followed his journey. So after the war, he was recruited by the Zionists. So after seeing Treblinka, we took him to Heel, to Israel, where he fought in the War of Independence there. He was in Israel from 45 to 48. And then he stayed 2 more years, and then he left in 1950. So I've always viewed his time in Israel uh, as very healing for him, as a therapy. And I'm sorry he's not here to talk about it, but um, there's a teacher, his name is Matityahu, who received my father and saved my father, made him whole, because my father had at times considered maybe taking his life or committing severe acts of terrorism. And it was Matityahu Shalem, who was a teacher and a philosopher and a musician, who just brought that down and made my father whole again.
I was going to ask your dad, but since you were part of this event anyhow, I'll direct the question at you. And because the Holocaust, your father was prevented from having his bar mitzvah when he was 13. And what I was going to ask your dad was the significance and the feeling of 80 years later, finally having the opportunity to celebrate his bar mitzvah. I believe it was in 2022 in San Mateo, and I know you and your brother Steve were there with him. I'd like you to share with our audience what it meant to your dad, how it felt for you and your brother. And I know we have a bit of a video clip we can show your dad reading during the bar mitzvah service. But maybe share with us a little bit of what your dad felt about this whole opportunity.
Sure. Well, yeah, being arrested at the age of 12 prevented him from having his bar mitzvah at the age of 13. And based on his life experience and the agony that he went through, he also just questioned his own Judaism and whether he would even remain a Jew. He was almost adopted by a Christian family in Poland until he found a family member who took him in. But all those years later, and he never really thought he was going to have a bar mitzvah. The closest he came to having one was he was in Israel, and a group of survivors, children of the Holocaust, were there, and he was supposed to. He was next in line to stand at the Western Wall and recite his Haftorah and have his bar mitzvah. But there was another gentleman who was about to miss his turn. He was being pulled away, and he begged my father, "Can you please let me have your space?" And this was what, like maybe 25 years ago. So he came this close, but then my father did a mitzvah by allowing this other person to have his spot, to have the bar mitzvah.
No, that's for speaking.
After waiting all those years, he had the chance, he lost the chance, he gave it to someone else, and then thanks to the synagogue in San Mateo, they made it possible for him to do that. And it was very emotional. There was one other bar mitzvah, a woman named Sonia, a good friend of my father, also a child survivor. And rather than just give a speech at the end of it, I made the determination to interview my father, to have a personal one-on-one conversation and ask him the questions that you're asking about what it meant for him to be on that stage that day after all he's been through, and to finally have that special event.
You referred earlier, Todd, to the format of the book, and where it's, first of all, the very short chapters, and it's kind of an ongoing dialogue between you, your dad, your brother, this kind of sometimes three-sided, and you said sometimes even rapid-fire jabs are sometimes part of it. How did you decide on that format, which is so critical to the book? How did you end up decide on that format itself?
Well, again, when I started out, it was feeling like, okay, the first second draft felt like, okay, I've been able to create another Holocaust memoir. And those are some of the I honor those books. They're some of the greatest literature ever written. And it just I didn't feel like I belonged in that pantheon. Uh, and it just didn't quite feel like me. It didn't quite feel like my father. Um, it felt very formal and somber and reverent. And that ain't who I am, and that ain't who my father is. So I wanted to, I thought about my own children and about the younger generation. And is it possible this younger generation might think they know everything already about the Holocaust, or they have such little awareness of it? The statistics are really astonishing. Um, and I wanted to appeal to those people as well as the traditional Holocaust reader. I wanted to draw in younger, more cynical, more skeptical, more bite-sized readers, and see if I could accomplish that while also respecting the the genre. So it gets back to that balance between the reverent and the irreverent, breaking down the norms of the conventional Holocaust memoir and serving it in quick bites, which is how I think people consume information.
Hmm.
I wanted to deliver it that way.
Now, we haven't been able to get your dad back on the call. I see that Chris has just mentioned, I don't know if you can do this, um, to somehow message him to tell he was in the wrong link or something. Chris, are you there? Maybe we can try to get David back on. Is there something that Todd can do, can send to him?
I'm actually on the phone with David right now, trying to talk him through back onto Zoom.
Oh, well,
So
thank
let
you,
me see if I can get that done for you.
because it'd be nice
Hey,
to get
Charlie.
David
Hey,
back on.
hey, Charlie.
Yes,
It's a link in my father's email that says, click on this at 7 p.m.
there's a link in your email that you click on
At
this
4 p.m. Click on this at 4
or
p.m.
4 p.m.
That's the
All right.
subject.
Oh, 4 p.m. So let me start it, then I'll see.
Yeah, go back to the original.
Okay. Okay. Cancel caption up here. Okay, let me just. Okay, let's see.
So,
Oh yeah.
so while we have this interlude, that name Charlie Northend is the one I referenced earlier, to to bring some levity to a very heavy moment, which is a gift that he has. And he's also been my savior, my IT savior throughout the years. And I also call him my external hard drive. He remembers everything, and he will use that for good and bad purposes.
Well, thank you, Charlie, for trying to help David get back on the call. We appreciate that. While we wait for that, I have a question for you, Todd, about something you referred to in the book, which may amuse some of our audience members. I don't think you were being facetious. Maybe you were, and I fell for it. You said early in your life you actually applied to become a Nazi hunter at the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Los Angeles, and I wanted to ask you about that. So that was what you were being serious in the book when you said that.
Oh, absolutely. So when I turned 19, my father first opened up about his Holocaust survival. And that just, when I learned the details, it sent me over the edge. It was this combination of rage and wanting retribution and revenge, not justice, which is the inverse of justice, not revenge. I was in the revenge category, but I quickly learned that the Simon Wiesenthal Center was not recruiting for the Inglorious Bastards Division. So they smartly rejected me. And so my career took a slightly different turn. I went into advertising where, ironically, I get to work on some ad campaigns for some rather fascistic clients.
Well,
I hope you're not on I hope you're not on the call.
yeah. Well, they could have used a good Nazi hunter like you. I think. Just think where it could have taken you.
I think I'd be reckless.
Todd, how much has your father's story shaped your Jewish identity and even your self-perception as a Jew?
Hmm. Um, well, learning what my father did to survive forced me to see him and myself differently. This easygoing, funny, self-made man who tells off-color jokes and, took me to Mets games. Uh, he was carrying some unimaginable pain. And I realized that I inherited not just his ability to lighten up the dark, but also a way of pushing conflict and anger and anxiety into this emotional vault. The difference between our vaults is my vault leaks and stuff gets out. And when it does, it affects others around me, um, people who deserve better. But I've got it under control now, and it took some time. And to your other point, it also clarified my Jewish identity. Here's how I see myself. I'm not an Orthodox, conservative, or Reform or high holiday Jew. I am a Holocaust Jew, a proud Holocaust Jew, a child of a survivor who was shaped by inherited trauma and systematic genocide. And I carry the constant presence of death and mistrust and vulnerability and the duty to remember always.
Well said. What do you hope readers will, and you've alluded a bit to this earlier, but maybe we can get you to address it directly. What do you hope readers will take away from reading this book?
A few things. No doubt, we carry our parents and our grandparents' pain, but we also carry their resilience, their humor, this ability to survive through life's toughest challenges. And the book shows that you can laugh and weep about the Holocaust, the aftershocks, sometimes on the same page. And I also hope to dispel some of the misconceptions about second and third generation survivors. We're not all these detached and ready to move on, and we're not all neurotic trauma vessels either. We each process a family history in our own way. And for some of us, it's a burden. For others, it's this like badge of honor. And I guess I fall into this category too. And some of us are like vegans or protein proselytizers who just won't shut up about it.
Hey, Robert, I think you can start Dave's video and audio from your end. I've got him back on, but he's muted and his video isn't present.
The host would like to
Chris,
Stay tuned.
maybe Chris, you can get David.
And Charlie, can you tell my father to hang up the phone, possibly?
I'll do that as soon as we get him connected.
Okay, great.
Audio's there. All right, you can hang up, David.
Yeah.
Oh, there, I see David.
Wow, mission accomplished, Charlie. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. David,
Yes, now I can.
you don't need the phone, I don't think. I hope not.
I don't know. It's not my lucky day today.
No. Well, thank you, David. Thank you for staying with us, and really
That's okay. My pleasure. No problem.
great to have you back with us. The
So
show is
So
not.
let me shut the phone off. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't need
Cool.
the phone. All right.
Welcome back, Dad.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're worth waiting for, David, for sure. I did have a couple of questions earlier, a couple of which I ended up redirecting to Todd, but and I know we're starting to get towards the end of the show, but I have a question for you, David, and
Go ahead.
I'm really actually thrilled that you're back with us because this is an important question.
Yeah.
As both a Holocaust survivor and as someone who also fought in the War of Independence for Israel, what's it been for you? What's it been like for you the past 2 years, which, of course, in the post-October 7th reality, we've all witnessed this very alarming upsurge in anti-Semitism almost everywhere. And I have to imagine, without being presumptuous, that it is particularly difficult for people like yourself who lived through the Holocaust. So I'd like to hear what it's been like for you the past 2 years since October 7th.
Since October 7th, it's when I saw what happened, actually, there goes again. I remind myself where we got caught with the pants down. I say we, I mean, I guess I'm included. They got caught with the pants down again. They thought, well, everything is fine. We'll be able to dance now and have a great time. And the Arabs wouldn't attack us anymore. No, you see, they're waiting for the soft moment where they can penetrate and do a job on you. And this is actually what happened. This is what happened in the Suez Canal that time, many years ago. The same thing happened now on October 7th. They were dancing in a great time, didn't realize that they can penetrate. Well, anyway, too late now.
And since then, though, accompanied with this absolutely alarming upsurge, as I said, of anti-Semitism since October 7th, what has that been like for you?
Well, anti-Semitism, I believe you got to do it with the strength. You got to do whoever tries to put us down as Jews, a bunch of bastards. You got to grab them and you got to do the same thing to them. You got to do with strength. They don't know any other way. When you show them a little weakness, they're going to swallow you. So you got to show these enemies of ours, of the anti-Semites, you got to bloody their nose once and for all. This is my belief, because I know from my experience, if you're a weakling, they're going to shit on your head, excuse my expression. But if you show them some strength, they're going to look at you, well, hey, this guy's going to hit my back again. I better be careful.
And how difficult, though, has it been
For me?
to witness the past 2 years? I mean, I'm leaving aside just the actual day for a moment, the atrocities of October 7th, and I'm speaking more what we've seen unfold throughout the world.
In the United States with the anti-Semitism? Yeah.
For example.
Well, because we don't do nothing about it, you see. The Jews should have like not a gang member, but I would say like a JD, like a not a JDL, one of these, like they got him in New York. What's his name? The guy with the red beret on his head. Sliva, the guy Sliva, which he supposed to protect New York City and all that. We should have something like this too, like a civil patrol or civil defending of our Jewish people. That's it.
Yeah, the guardian angels.
Like a guardian angel, exactly. That's it. That's what I meant. So we should call our channel the Guarding Jews.
And Dad,
and we need you to lead it, David, by the way.
Pardon me?
We need you to lead it.
I'm pretty sure he would get back in the fight.
It's it's when you're weak, you show them that you're weak, they're gonna crop on your head. That's the story. This is it. This is what I found out.
Okay, well, those are words of wisdom and experience. Again, because of time, I'm not going to be able to take all the questions, but there is a question I'd like to take from our audience. It's actually from a fellow Holocaust survivor, someone who works with our organization very much, who we're proud to have working with us. His name is Andy Retty. And Andy has posed the question. I guess this is more directed for you, Todd, because Andy asks about the trauma, and do you think that you inherited the sense of trauma that your father experienced?
Yes. I'd like to think it's a diluted form of it, but his experience, I do believe, was genetically transferred to me, and I also believe it was transferred through, a nurture, hearing his stories with some consistency affected my personal relationships, my professional relationships. This is like a therapy session. I've had issues with substance abuse. And so has my brother. And we always try to lay it on we always say, Dad, thanks a lot. Thanks for giving us this inheritance, but it does manifest in some serious ways. And over the years, I've had to manage what I learned is my genetic connection to his experiences that was kind of transferred into me, and then how that has affected my personal and professional relationships. I hope that answers your question.
Well, it's interesting that the question was about trauma, and of course, and not to make light of it for one moment, but it's interesting because, of course, the title of the book, Past the Trauma, Please. I wish we had more time. There are more questions, but we always do try to work within the 1 hour format of the program. We don't want to impose a greater length for our viewers. So on that note, this really brings to a close this latest installment of FSWC's Book Talk. First of all, thank you to everyone who joined us for this edition. And we have a special appreciation, of course, to both David and Todd.
Thank you. Thank you.
Being our featured guests. It really means a lot to have both of you, not just the author of the book, Todd. I should mention that anyone is interested in purchasing a copy of Past the Trauma, Please. It will be available in all major bookstores, certainly next week when it's officially released, and also available online if you're interested in purchasing it, including on Amazon. We do hope you'll be able to join us for our next edition of Book Talk, which is scheduled for October 19th, when our guest that evening will be, well, it's actually going to be the afternoon because it's going to be a guest from Paris. Her name is Shannon Sivan. She'll be, as I said, join us live from Paris. And I'll be speaking with her about her new book, which the French title is Française, Juive et alors, which translates as French, Jewish, and so what? It's a sobering account of the current reality in France for Jews and her personal story as an outspoken politician and a courageous activist fighting anti-Semitism. She's had death threats. She's had special police security because of her stance. I've already read Shannon's book. I found it highly engaging. I actually wrote about it for the Times of Israel. And although the book is in French, Shannon will be speaking with us in her excellent English. I had the great pleasure of meeting her in person the last time I was in Paris earlier this year. I can guarantee you'll be in for a captivating hour with Shannon. As always, we invite you, if you have suggestions for other authors, other books, please share them with us. And now, on behalf of friends of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, thank you again so much for being with you. And a really special thank you to both you, David and Todd. A really great discussion. And good luck with the book. And maybe we'll have you on when you have your next book, Todd.
Thank you, Robert. And just I want to end on a less traumatic note to answer the viewer's question. It wasn't just trauma that was passed on to my brother and I. It was also resiliency. And I think he gave us that as well. So thank you, Dad.
And yeah, thank you, David, especially.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it, Robert. Thank you again. You're a great gentleman, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
No, the pleasure is all ours, and very inspiring listening to you, reading the book, and ad mea vestrim, as they say. I mean, we could have talked also about the recognition you got from the IDF. My apologies, we don't have more time. There's really, and maybe we'll have a second segment one time. And thank you for everybody going the distance and watching this to the end.
Thank you.
Laila Tov.
Laila Tov.
Bye. Laila Tov is right.